ETA needed. Whatever green card is there, that is valid. The old green card was not giving ETA to visit Canada for green card holders of US. And so how to come by road from Sacramento to Toronto? And the next day is the retreat. It's already Saturday is the retreat. So only Friday left. So I requested Swamiji that if you come by road, then only you can come with green card. You don't need ETA or permission of the government of Canada to have electronic travel authorization. So then we requested whether he can come to fly to Buffalo, and from there some of us will go and pick him up from Buffalo and he will come to Toronto. Long flight, one stop at Washington DC, and he agreed to all that. He purchased the ticket, he agreed that. Early morning, 8 o'clock was the flight, so he had to go 2 hours before, he had to get ready from the ashram, and only 1 hour layover at Washington DC, no arrangement for food, and he's vegetarian, getting food is difficult. Still he took all the trouble and came to Washington DC, supposed to land at about 6:37 in Buffalo. Vijit will go there and pick him up from there, 9:30 he reached Toronto. This was almost okay, though he had to travel 2 days. In Dallas, in Washington DC, that flight got delayed by 4 hours. He came to Washington DC, 4 hours was stranded in Washington DC. From their next flight was to leave around 9 o'clock and arrive 10:30 to Buffalo. 10:30 clearance, 10:40, around 11 o'clock he came here, 2 a.m. on Friday night. Saturday morning, 9 o'clock is the session. 2 a.m. he came, and after that he slept, took a little rest, time difference and all that, and he woke up in time, and we had sessions starting 9:15 on Saturday, 9:15 early in the morning today, and now we have Swamiji here for the open session. Swamiji came to Sacramento about 30 years ago. Before that, he was in Rajkot for 20 long years in one center and served in every department of Rajkot Center. So in his 50 years of monastic life, he has been serving like that to the needs of the people in various capacities. And he came to Sacramento the year we got Swami Prabhupada in Toronto, 1989. And after Sultanji passing away, he became minister in charge there in Sacramento. Swamiji was initiated by Swami Vireshwaranandaji Maharaj, and also he was so fortunate to have received sannyas also from him in 1976. The year I joined, he was a sannyasi. So senior he is to even to me. That is our Swamiji, and we are so grateful for him to taking so much trouble and explaining us very new subject, Uddhava Gita, all so wonderful teachings of Sri Krishna to Uddhava and through Uddhava to all of us. I won't take much time, and now request Swamiji to say us about the Uddhava Gita now to the people who are new, and also to us, again to create like revision and also recapitulation of our retreat. Srimad Swami Prapannanda.
भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृण्वाम देवा भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्रः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्ट्वांशस्तनूभिः वसेम देवहितं यदायुः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. May we hear with our ears what is auspicious. May we see with our eyes what is beneficial. May we sing praises to the Lord and enjoy with strong limbs and body the life assigned to us by Him. Oh, peace, peace, peace. I am understand Swami Prapannanda and also the devotees of Prapannanda Center for kindly inviting me to this place to take part in this retreat. I had come here when Prabhupada was here in the year 2002. And after coming this time, I am completely lost. That means I do not find out actually how was the old center, which has become so new, so beautiful, so spacious. And that is a great achievement that the devotees have done under the leadership of Swami Prapannanda. And as I already told the story that why I came here and why you were determined to come here, that means I was inspired by one instance in the life of Vidyasagar. That means when his brother was getting married, his mother requested him to come, but he waged a great storm and appeared in the marriage ceremony and said that, "Mother, since you asked me to come, so I have come." Even the weather also so not good, that means it was in bad weather. So I thought that, well, there are opportunities. That means nowadays communications, transportations are so advanced that if you want, you can do something. So I thought that there is an opportunity, so I took a chance and ultimately reached in time. So it is a pleasure to be here, and Prabannanda asked me to speak about the Uddhava Gita. Rather, I selected the subject as a retreat, for that retreat, the subject Uddhava Gita, because Uddhava Gita is not that well known or not very much referred to book that we have. But Uddhava Gita has some salient points which are really very important or relevant to our lives. Sri Ramakrishna, as a part of the Bhagavatam, occasionally quoted some of the incidents of Uddhava Gita. And in that way, it is not absolutely well known because it is a part of Bhagavatam. But as a subject, complete subject of Uddhava Gita, it is worth studying. I usually give classes on Uddhava Gita in our center, probably 2-3 times I have given. Uddhava Gita starts with the story that when Lord Krishna was about to depart from this world, that means he decided to quit this world, leave his body, his good friend and disciple and also cousin Uddhava came to him saying that we are friends and you are my teacher, and I have lived with you for such a long time, since the days of Mathura, and now how shall I live without you? At that time, Lord Krishna told him that, yes, I am living, and you also come to me after when your life will end. That means when your karma will end, then ultimately you will come to me, because you are my devoted disciple. In that way there is no problem. But Uddhava was not very sure how he will live after living a long time with him, how he will live the rest of the time. So he sought some advices, and in that spirit of giving advices, Lord Krishna told him something which is enshrined into Uddhava Gita. Just like Bhagavad Gita, in Uddhava Gita, Lord Krishna has said or given the instructions or delineated all the types of spiritual practices that are quite common in Hinduism. But he has emphasized at least two things. One thing is very important, that means we sometimes feel that without the guidance of a teacher we shall not be able to live a spiritual life. It is almost a must for us. But Lord Krishna cited example from the ancient laws that there was instances that when a person could realize God, become a realized soul, just by observing the things of nature. We can learn spirituality by observing things of nature. And it is very relevant, as I feel nowadays, because nowadays people, especially young people, do not like to associate with organized religion. if you say that, what is your religion? He said that, well, I am Hindu or I am Christian or whatever it may, but I am not very serious about the practice of religion. But by not following religion, I am not, hate it, but I am spiritual. That means I like to be spiritual. I believe all those things, or I want to be spiritual, but I do not want to be labeled as a follower of certain religion. That is very common because people are young people are almost denying a religion. So in this context, this story of Avadhuta is very relevant because Avadhuta was not a member of any religious sect or any organized religion, though Hinduism was there, so he was not like that. So the story of Avadhuta, as I told you, it has been told by Lord Krishna, so I just repeated that one which is in the Uddhava, that Lord Krishna said that there was an ancient roving monk. He had the opportunity of talking to one of his ancestors, Yadu, saying that, well, Yadu understood that he was a realized soul. In those ancient times, kings had inclinations to associate with spiritual persons like Janaka. He was a very famous person who used to invite sages in his court and used to have discourses and all those. They were very interesting. So he was also in that way interested, and then when he saw Avadhuta, he told that I like you, and it seems to me that you are a realized person, but you do not have you do not live in any place, do not teach. What is the matter? Who are you? So Avadhuta said that, well, yes, I am a realized person, and also I do not have anything to teach, or I do not do anything. That is also true. Then that Yadu asked him that how actually you become like this. So where you have learned your spirituality? So Avadhuta said that I have learned my spirituality by studying nature. That means, see, I do not have any particularly one guru. In India, a spiritual person always refers to a guru. He said now in the introduction that my spiritual teacher is Swami. In his case also, I will have to tell that his guru is like that. In that way, it is very important. That means a lineage is very important. But he said that I don't have any particular guru, but I learned my spirituality from 24 teachers. And we had the opportunity of discussing how actually what he learned from all those teachers, a little by little. I shall only refer to one of them, which I did not tell in the discourse. The last one was a Brahmarupita as it is called. Brahmarupita is a type of wasp. And Sri Ramakrishna actually has referred to that. That means he said that by intense thought, actually you can transform yourself. In our Patanjali Yoga Sutra also it has been said that if you think intensely of something, you can become like that. Suppose I am a human being, but somehow or other, if I intensely think that I am a snake, I can become a snake. It is possible. That means there are instances in our Puranas that one king, he was given what is called a curse by a sage or whatever it may be. And because of that, he thought so intensely that immediately he became like that. That is a possibility that Patanjali has said. So in the same way, in spirituality it is like this, that if you want to think, if you intensely think of something, you become like that. That you can become realized, just change yourself by meditation, that is the point. The story of wasp is like this, that these wasps take out a ring when they hatch, they prepare one nest of soil, earth. That means the corners of the door, the window, you see that they make nest, and inside the nest they lay their eggs, and then they put some insect. Here actually it is cockroach. Live cockroach they put inside, and then they seal it. And children see that, and when the egg hatches, so they grow inside and eat that cockroach, which by that time had died, and they become wasps, and they come out breaking the nest. And the children think that this cockroach got turned into what is called a wasp. So in that way, that story is like that, but theoretically it is possible according to yoga that to change oneself. So Sri Ramakrishna used to refer to that, yes, by intensely thinking we can become a spiritual person. So Avadhuta gave this example that he has learned that to become a spiritual person you have to do deep meditation, and in that way actually you can change yourself. That means a realized person. So this is a Avadhuta story, and then another two salient point of Uddhava Gita is that Lord Krishna, though he had given briefly, just in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has given briefly all the points of the different yogas. That means, in fact, all the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita is title of the chapters end with yoga. That means spiritual path. So he has delineated or described how those paths, that means karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, and in that way all the yogas actually are described. And in the same way in Uddhava Gita, it is not mentioned in that way, but briefly he has touched all the yogas that is there. And especially two things was emphasized by Lord Krishna. First is that practice of devotion, bhakti yoga as it is called. In bhakti yoga he has emphasized that how a devotee should practice spirituality, and also in detail he has given a description of how to perform ritualistic worship by construction of a temple, establishing a deity, and how the seva puja as it is called, how day-to-day activities of worship, service and all those things will be done. All those things he has described. And another thing he has said, which is known as holy company. Holy company means, in Sanskrit, it will be what is called satsang, as it is called. Will be holy person and listening for the spirituality. It is very important because to become spiritual, we always think, as Sri Krishna said, people think that we have to read lots of books, then you have to do lots of intense spiritual practice, then actually probably you'll be able to realize God. That is definitely one way, but it is not really the only way. That is the point. He said simply by listening to the holy person or holy text, if you call it. Bhagavatam says that by listening to the story of these incarnations of God, one can have liberation. And many people actually, even now, many people actually believe that, because everybody does not have the opportunity of learning scriptures or learning scriptures from a teacher. So when there is an exposition of these stories like Bhagavatam or other stories of other spiritual personalities, then actually they listen, and in that way there is an opportunity of thinking of them. And thinking of them is a type of meditation. That means meditation is nothing but intense thinking, directing the mind to one thought. And if that is done, we know that even at the time of death, if we can remember some godhead or a spiritual personality, then there is the possibility that we shall not be born again. Bhagavatam itself has said that. So that is the simplest way, that is getting liberation. So Lord Krishna is saying that of all the spiritual practices or all the paths that has been described in the scriptures, he actually likes this satsang, that means holy company, very much. So he has said in the Bhagavatam, he has said that Brotani yogna chandansi tirthani niyama yoma yathava rundhe satsanga sarva sangha hima. Company of holy men eradicates all worldly attachments from the mind of man. Then he is saying Matkama, he has given examples. It is not that he has said or he has invented or he is just out of love saying to Uddhava that you have company of me, so don't worry. It is not like that. He has given example that because of the holy company, most illiterate persons, not even illiterate person, other entities also had the opportunity of getting liberation. There he gave the instances. So one of the instances that he has given, Matkama Ramanam Jaras Sarupa Vidobala Brahmaman Paraman Prapu Sangachata Sahasrasha. Not knowing my real nature, the gopis who were ignorant women desired me as their beloved sweetheart. If you remember the life of Lord Krishna in the childhood, he was born in Mathura, and because of circumstances, his father actually took him for safety to Vrindavan. Then he was reared there, that he grew up there, and as a child would play and other things. He had a great love for these cowherd boys and girls who became very fond of him, and in that way they used to play, which is very interesting chapter of his life. But the point is that those gopos and gopis, that means the cowherd boys and cowherd girls, did not realize that Krishna was an incarnation of God. There was some influence, there was some indication of his spirituality or his incarnationhood to others. That means though he was a child at that time, some people actually guessed that he was an incarnation of God. But these gopos and gopis, just like him, one of them actually, they played and they passed that time, and in that way the love actually grew amongst them. So Lord Krishna himself is giving the example without knowing that his true nature. Who were gopis, who were ignorant women, desired me as their beloved sweetheart, yet they attained me, the Supreme Brahman, by hundreds and thousands through the sheer power of holy association. So all those gopis and gopis had the liberation in their life because of the association with him. So they have given this example. This is one of the examples, that is the thing. So this holy company, has been prescribed by many of our teachers, spiritual teachers. And Sri Ramakrishna himself also emphasized this. Sri Ramakrishna himself was not really, in our own terms, educated person as such, well-read in scriptures, if you call it. He was not well-read in scriptures. But he learned his spirituality by listening to spiritual discourses, or by seeing people who are doing, or he has a great inclination of meeting people who are known as spiritual personalities. And in that way he learned he earned spiritual knowledge. Then he did spiritual practices as a profession. That means he was a priest, which is also a prescribed method of devotion by which actually one can realize God. And he himself has seen that it is possible for a person to imbibe spirituality by this association with holy people. So when anybody used to come, any person used to come, especially householders, and he used to ask him that, sir, how to be a spiritual, and how to do spiritual practices, and how actually you can do that. Sri Ramakrishna knew their situation and circumstances, because household people, they are not really totally dedicated, just like monks or what is called sages, to completely renounce everything. That is, they are not in such circumstances. A monk or a sage, they know that spiritual path is the thing that they need to follow. So they renounce everything. That means they receive a connection. They see her connection with everything and take to spiritual life totally. That means everything that they do are meant for spirituality. So many people cannot do, though they have in their heart of hearts, to realize God or to progress in spirituality. So then when they used to ask him, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that, well, you do one thing. First is that because you live in the world, you are living a worldly life, you have your duties to perform. That means you have your children, you have your wife, and you have to earn money, and you have to take care of them. And you have to have a job, all those things. Definitely you cannot quit at all immediately, that even if you have a strong desire. So continue that, but time to time go to a place of seclusion. That means where you can be away from your day-to-day life. Occasionally, that means it is not that you go away for a few years or something like that, but occasionally remain in the worldly life, do your duties, take care of them, of the family people, but take off from them and go to a secular place and think of God. And second thing that it is advised is the sadhu sangha, that means find out a spiritual person or where spiritual discourses are given, and in that way you listen to them and try to develop spirituality within yourself. And many people, as you know, when you read Gospel of Swami, you will find that because of the spiritual, they are all, most of them were what is called householders, but they had spiritual inclination, so they used to come to Sri Ramakrishna. And not only that, they, many of them actually was continuously going to different spiritual personalities. And then when they came to know about Sri Ramakrishna, they became their disciples, and ultimately they progressed in spiritual life, as we see. So what he said is what is called universal truth, or you can say the spiritual life, which is a very effective thing for a person who cannot really dedicate themselves totally in the pursuit of spirituality. So Sri Ramakrishna also, when he had the opportunity of listening to this Bhagavatam, as Uddhava Gita is a part of the Bhagavatam, and he came to know about this, and he said that these are very practical suggestions that has been given by Lord Krishna, and he himself utilized that for the benefit of the devotees. So we see that what happens if a person goes to a spiritual man. So the point is that those who are immersed in householders' life, they can understand what is really spiritual and what is really unspiritual. That means what needs to be pursued and what needs to be eschewed, that means given up. So that conscience comes to them, which actually gives attachment and which practices or which path actually gives non-attachment, and they come to know. Power of discrimination develops once one goes to a spiritual person, because he himself is practicing, and by his instruction also he can impart that knowledge. Then it says that it takes away temporarily actually when the mind goes to spiritual thoughts, but as a temporary relief also you can forget for that time when you are having that satsang, as it is called, that mind will be in a better place, that means spiritual sphere. This association of the mind to higher thoughts is a great benefit, because day-to-day life, all the thoughts of the worldly things keeps the mind busy, stressed and all those things. But when you come to a holy person, those things temporarily actually will be taken care of. That means we will have a certain amount of relief from that. Then one can, by seeing a holy person, can understand how to conduct a spiritual life. That means guidance is also possible. So he will inquire how sir you have become spiritual. That's just like Uddhava told this king, that means how he had learned spirituality. His case he told, so in that way we can come to know the different spiritual personalities have different paths, and in that way how he's become. So practical guidance is available when one does what is called holy company. Then one can know, as just like a doctor, that means from a physician. Physician, you know, if you go for the study of medicine, so you have to be with, as it's called internship, or you have theoretical knowledge, but you have to be with a person who is really treating patients. So in that way, when he treats patients, he sees the pulse and all those things. So practical aspect of spirituality one can learn. That is another advantage of having the company of holy. Then Lord Krishna has said that in our scriptures it has been said, Shanamiha sajjana sangati rekha bhavati bhavarnavo tarune noka. That means it is a little bit of knowledge of spirituality can save oneself from dire consequences. That means a little knowledge. That means in spiritual life it is like this. When spiritual life starts, probably immediately we shall not get any result. But when we know things, and then when the opportunity or occasion comes, by remembering the spiritual things, actually we can you can really conduct and get rid of those difficult situations easily. That is the point. And not only that, a little bit of spirituality actually helps one to what is called get rid of dire consequences. That also has been said in the scriptures. So how to know a holy person? That is also another thing. So Sri Ramakrishna also has quoted from different sources what he had learned by listening to discourses of spiritual persons. So he said, in one place it is said, Jahare dekhile hoy Krishna premodhoy, tahare Vaishnava boli janiha nishchay. This is Lord Chaitanya's teaching. He has said that how actually you recognize, you find out that a person is spiritual. Outwardly, it is not possible. Everybody does not wear what is called the ochre robe and such other signs of holiness. And sometimes the person in the garb of holy person may not be that holy also. That is also another point. But there is definitely one way of recognizing a holy person that Sri Chaitanya has said, Jahare dekhile hoy Krishna premodaya, tahare Vaishnava boli jani manishya. That means by seeing him, by the company of him, actually spiritual fervor is inculcated inside the mind. Please know that that person is really spiritual. There is no other way. It is like what is called a sort of meter, detector or something like that. That is the only way one can recognize. He may not be the garb, as I told you, the spiritual person. There are ways, that means monks and others, because they have renounced, so naturally in the society they know and the people know by their dress. But that doesn't mean that everybody is that of the nature of our spirituality. That means they have, probably somebody is just embarked into that life, somebody will be advanced. So how to recognize that? Recognition is like that, by sitting there or by having company of that. If the fervor of spirituality develops in yourself, know that that is the way it works. That means that is the person. That person is spiritual. You will find in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Mohendran Buddha. So he said that when we went to Sri Ramakrishna, when we used to go to Sri Ramakrishna, sometimes we used to wonder that whether Sukadeva has taken has come down as Sri Ramakrishna and expounding Bhagavatam in our time. So in that spirit actually they felt in the proximity of Sri Ramakrishna. That means immediately they got the relief from their worldly cares and spiritual fervor and enter into their mind. And also we see in Vivek Chudamani, Shankaracharya has said, Shanto Mahanto Nivasanti Santo Vasanto Valla Hitam Charantam Tirtham Sam Bhima Bhavarnavam Janana Hetu Annanapi Tarvanti. That means Janan Ahentun Annanapi. That is, he himself has crossed the ocean of life. And then actually he takes the position of helping others, just like a boatman, to help others to cross the ocean of life. And that type of person is called a holy man. So in this way we can understand who is holy and who is really a little bit helpful in our spiritual life. Now, holy company is when holy company is today in the morning, actually there is a question that if we do not find a holy person in holy company, what we shall do. So the thing that can be done is like this. That means holy company helps us because it keeps the mind, or elevates the mind to spirituality. The person himself and also the person about whom he is talking who is holy. In that way, mind gets associated with holiness. So that is what is called, in this way actually it works. So the point is that if you can really transport your mind in holiness, actually that will be as good as holy company when it is not available. Especially in Canada, you know that the country is so large. We do not know actually where we'll end up. Of course, those who have secured job, it is okay. But those who are seeking job, probably they will find a job which is remote. Probably there will be a possibility of having a holy person there. You may not find a person. So how to impart holiness or how to get holy company? So there is an alternative. Books like Bhagavatam and books like Bhagavad Gita, spiritual books that are there, can transport our mind to holiness. We shall be thinking. It is a matter of spirituality is 7% mental thing. That means physically things are there, but physical things are meant to impart influence the mind. Otherwise the physical things do not work. Many people do worship and all those things we see in the traditional temples and all those things, but they're thinking of money only. That means that those acts of spirituality which has been prescribed in scriptures, physically they are doing, but if the mind is not affected by those good thoughts, then it is not spiritual, that is the point. But if the mind somehow or other kept in holy thoughts, then actually, in any way, then actually it is spirituality and it will be a sort of holy company. And that can be done when the holy persons are not available, by thinking or by reading spiritual things or reading the lives of spiritual persons like Lord Krishna. Bhagavatam is a very good book. Having the holy company, you will always be thinking of the presence of Lord Krishna. And in our time we have this book, Kathamrita, that means, as it has been said, Tabu Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam. This is actually a quotation from the Bhagavatam with which actually it starts, and it says that the stories and the words of the Bhagavatam is such that it cools the life which is scorched by the fire of worldliness. So this type of books actually is a sort of substitute for physical presence for a holy person or physically going to a holy person. So in times of illness, when you can't really go anywhere, or in times of inclination, whether or whatever it means, there is a desire to have holy company, but we cannot go. These books which are really telling the story of holy persons can act as a holy company. So let me share with you some of the sayings of the direct disciples who became holy by the company of holy person like Sri Ramakrishna. So we seek their person, many persons have sought company of them, and also their teachings are very helpful for us in developing spiritual life. So Swami Prapannanda was one of the foremost disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Swami Vivekananda is considered to be the supreme, that means he is the topmost. But Swami Prapannanda is also considered a very highly evolved spiritual personality, and is considered to be as good as Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual son. That means Swami Vivekananda himself used to respect it that way. In many places he has said that Rakhal is pre-monastic name because their friends are what is called young age. Even before becoming a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, they knew each other. So he has said Rakhal is in spirituality superior to me. That means Swami Vivekananda to us is a high spiritual person. And not only that, a very important person in the life of Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Ramakrishna order also. He established these things. But Swami Prapannanda, he gave that honor that he is greater than me in spirituality. So he has also the occasion of directing young people and also householders in the spiritual life. So occasionally he had to say about holy company. So he said in one place, the holy company you keep, the spiritual talk you hear, all make an impression on your mind. A bumblebee hiding in a fragrant flower offered in the worship touches the feet of the Lord. Similarly, by the grace and association of the holy man, one surpasses even the gods and attains liberation. Surpasses God in this way. There are instances. Today we have the opportunity of reading one saying by Lord Krishna himself. He said that I love to take the dust of the feet of the holy men who always recite or think of God. That means he became so, that shows his great importance to the holy company, And not only that, he loves. That means he actually, there are many ways that he has described, but he loves this thing, who actually, loves those people who talks about the holy persons and holy things. So there are occasions in the life of Lord Krishna that he had actually done that. He was a human being. That means as an individual, he was born as a human being. So he always followed the dictums or the customs and conventions that were common in his life. So he used to take the dust of the feet of Gandhari. That means she was just a queen. And he was an incarnation of God. So Gandhari should have taken the dust of the feet of Lord Krishna, but it was opposite, because Gandhari was much senior, and in that way the queen he used to go to him, to her in that way. So the point is that those who are spiritual, he used to take the dust from the feet of those persons. So that honor he used to give to them. Then Swami Brahmananda is saying, once the mind tastes sweetness in the thought of God, there is nothing to fear. Seek the association of the holy so that you may acquire that taste. So by seeing the holy person, by the close proximity of living with near a holy person, and one can develop the taste. We do not understand outwardly how actually the persons who are thinking of God live their life. What is the benefit that they get? So thinking of the God, those who have derived joy, you can learn that how to, by thinking of God, to derive joy, by seeing those persons, you can have that. Then he is saying, not all men know what is the best for them. Therefore they should seek the society of holy men. Unless a man spends some time in solitude or in the company of the holy, he cannot understand his own mind also. That is also another point. To understand one's mind, what is the inclination of the mind, whether it will be worldly, that means good for name, fame, money and all those things, or whether it wants wants to go in the spiritual line. All those things cannot be decided until and unless you go to a holy person. By seeing him or by listening him, you get direction which is really desirable for you. Then only you can decide what needs to be done. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you see that some people used to go who had the inclination of association of the holy with some of their friends. And the friends actually did not have much inclination towards spirituality. So they used to, because their what is called spiritual friend or spiritually aspiring friend used to take with them. So they just used to go to Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna used to understand the mind of these people. So after some time, those friends actually used to tell their friend that, well, let us go now, enough is enough. In that way they become impatient. Then Sri Ramakrishna will tell them, well, you go and see the temple and we will come and join you later. The point is that those who do not have inclination, they do not get any benefit of the association. But those who have the inclination, they actually get the benefit. And they also try to share what they get from them and draw the other persons also towards a holy person. So understanding the mind actually is possible after going to a holy person. Do you know why you should seek the society of holy men? Their experiences are a great help to a spiritual aspirant. When you visit a strange place, if you have the help of a reliable guide, you will quickly see all that is worth seeing there. You know, in places, what is called, there are guides and visitors in many places, in museums and other places. You see that if you want to know something, you can ask somebody who will show you and explain to you in that way. That type of persons are there. Holy men are like that. That means when you enter into the spiritual realm, they can really guide you, give information in that way. That means that is the function of the holy person. Also, he will save you from the dangers and difficulties into which a stranger is likely to fall. That is also another point. That means there are definitely dangers also. There are instances by doing spirituality according to one's own whim, if you call it, where the brain has got deranged. Some people actually lost their mind also. Some people think that if we do this pranayama, then actually you shall be self-realization, so they do intense pranayama for a long time. They get deranged. That means that they lose their mind completely. It happens like that. So the point is that that type of dangers are there in the pursuit of spiritual life. Holy man actually can protect oneself from that. Similarly, from the company of advanced soul, you will gather many valuable hints and your efforts will be simplified. No, merely to keep the company of the holy is not enough. That another advice that Swami Prapannanda given. You must open your heart and ask them to solve your doubts. That we see in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, that when there was a doubt, they used to ask questions to Sri Ramakrishna. Sir, is there no way of worldly person to attain to God? That we find that many persons, even Brahma devotees actually, used to ask Sri Ramakrishna how actually they can save themselves in their life. So that their advices are definitely available from a holy person. You must carefully observe their lives and imitate their example. It is a lazy man's attitude to think that all one need to do is to associate with the holy. Not like that. That means Sri Ramakrishna has given a good example also that holy men, they go from place to place for pilgrimage. And holy men means the monks. In those days they used to carry what is called water pots made of what is called a sort of gold. And these golds are really tasted bitter. But you see that holy water pot was carried by a holy man. That means he is always in touch with the holy man. So it is sort of holy company that water pot used to be. But the point is that they did not turn sweet. That means they maintained their bitterness even with that company of holy. The meaning is, the bottom line is that only just by going to a holy person one cannot become holy. You have to react or you have to interact with that holy person. Then actually you will get the result. That is being said by Swami Prapannanda. It is a very, I am just repeating, it is a lazy man's attitude to think that all one need to do is to associate with the holy. Needless to say, association is also very important, for in their company doubts are removed and pure thoughts are awakened. No scriptures or books can create such pure impressions or transform a man's life as much as contact with an enlightened soul. There are concrete examples also in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. You see, he had the opportunity of having two persons in his life. One is Hazra Mahashaya. If you read Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, there is a Pratap Chandra Hazra. He was a friend, you can say, or acquaintance of Sri Ramakrishna, and he used to do spiritual practices in his traditional way. That means repetition and naming deeds and all those things. But in his mind actually, he used to think. That means, though he used to repeat, but his mind was always engaged in thinking how to earn some money so that he can really repay his debt. That means he had some money in indebtedness, so he used to think how to get that money. So, though he had the opportunity of staying with Sri Ramakrishna, that means Sri Ramakrishna used to stay in the room and he used to stay in the porch. That means he had his own bed and all those things on the porch of the Kali temple. He has the opportunity of seeing and talking, interacting and listening and all those things with Sri Ramakrishna. But we do not see that transformed at all him. So that is the example actually, that gold which had the opportunity of being carried by a holy person did not change his bitterness. That actually see the life, the person is not, he doesn't have the inclination of practicing things which have been told, remains the same. So just physical proximity does not work, that is the point. Another example in the life of Sri Ramakrishna was that Hridayaram. Hridayaram was such a person that he used to take care of Sri Ramakrishna when he was doing intense spiritual practices. Sri Ramakrishna himself had admitted that without his help or without his nursing, that means when he was doing spiritual practices, the practices were so intense that he forgot when to eat. And not only that, because of austerities he became weak, and not only that, because of water and food and all those things were not good, he used to fall sick. So Hridaya actually, his nephew, who was in employment of the temple, at Kali temple, he used to take care of him. But the point is that he did not have any spiritual inclination. That means, though he saw his uncle doing all this spiritual practice, teaching these things to the people. It did not strike him. That means it did not occur to him to do all those practices. So he is another example that being a relative, having the opportunity of living with a holy person like Ramakrishna, they never inculcated spirituality. So again, that only proximity does not work, but one has to have spiritual inclination. That brings to that another, what is called, another aspect of holy company. That means somehow or other, if somebody has some sort of spiritual sanskar, as is called, impression in the life, probably that did not get an opportunity throughout the life spent. If that person comes to a spiritual person, automatically that means that will be, there will be effect on his mind, and all sanskars will come up. That means he will get back all the lost sanskars that actually did not get the opportunity of coming up. So that actually, just like a magnet, that means when magnet comes to the iron file, it will attract. In the same way, the sanskars which is dormant will be attracted. That means they will come up, activate themselves, and in that way, that will return. That will give a good turn to the person's life. Then Swami Shivananda was also a great disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, though he is not considered to be what is called Ishwar Koti. That means top class of spiritual personalities, as Sri Ramakrishna will designate a few of his disciples. But he himself has said that in this life he has turned or given me what is called, and he admitted me to be a Ishwar Koti. That means he turned himself to be a spiritual personality like Swami Brahmananda or Swami Yogananda or Swami Vivekananda. They are considered to be top class of spiritual aspirant. So he also has said, you should also come here now and then and associate with the monks. That will strengthen your mind greatly. So to an ordinary devotee is saying that if you want to imbibe spirituality, come here. Monks are there, you associate with them. When you come to the monks, you should talk with them about God. That is also the point. That means we have many things that we talk about, worldly things, and their importance are also there. But to get benefit of the spirituality, you have to talk with the monks. That means you are pursuing the spiritual life about spirituality. That is the point. And that with sincere devotion. If on the contrary you talk of other things, you gain nothing thereby. On the other hand, you waste the monks' time on trivialities. That also happens. That means if you talk about something which is not spiritual, time is wasted for the monk as well as the yourself. That means you lose the opportunity of imbibing spirituality. So these are the techniques or protocol, you could call it, how to imbibe spirituality. Just by being proximity, you can expect that you will become spiritual. Probably from a distance, another person is, he goes to that, what is called in that temple, or he goes to that monastery and talk to the Swamis and all those things. Probably he will think that he get the impression that he is becoming spiritual. But inside, if you are not talking about spirituality in the monk or spiritual person, it is not really working. It may be just a showy one, that is the point. Then it should not be thought that only those who suffer from the afflictions of the world and fall on bad days should visit holy men. Even if those who are born with a silver spoon in their mouth, those who are steeped in luxury and enjoyment, even if they get the companionship of holy people by some past merit, then from their minds also is wiped away forever the longing for this ephemeral so-called happiness. And their minds also turn towards the everlasting bliss, and their lives become fulfilled by tasting their unsurpassable joy, the highest joy of God realization. Some people, we see that they did not get the opportunity in imbibing spirituality because of the circumstances in which they are born. Lala Babu, there is a very good example that we see in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, the story of Lala Babu. Lala Babu was a zamindar, that means he was a very rich person, and naturally in zamindar, that you know that especially in Bengal, they used to go from place to place to earn or to get the money from the tenants. And in that way, and then by collecting the amount, they used to give some money to the British authorities. That is the system in which that used to work. So Zamindars actually were very much after the money, and not only that, they used to live a very lavish life. There are many stories you'll find in many novels actually that have been illustrated how the Zamindars used to live. But the point is that this Lala Babu actually was going from one village to another village one day. And it was evening. Then in those days, the washermen, there was no what is called mechanized laundry at that time. So what they used to do on the side of the pond, they used to wash their clothes of their clients and used to spread them. And in the morning, first they used to steam the clothes with some what is called ashes. In those days, the soda ash was not available, that has not been what is called invented. So they used to use a sort of ashes which came out of the bark of plantain tree. So that has to be prepared by them. So that they used to go in the previous evening, and in the morning they used to use that for the what is called steaming of the clothes. So the guard, that means little guard, used to help his father, the washerman, in preparing those things. He said that, well, if the evening has come when you will burn those ashes, prepare those ashes. Basanai akon agun debe. Basana is the name of those what is called bark of the plantain tree. So that they need to burn to get the ashes. So in the evening is coming soon, and when you will prepare that. So he was shouting like that, and Lala Babu was in a palanquin. In those days, car was not there, so he was passing a palanquin carried by other people, and he listened that. Basunai Kapon Agun Deve in Bengali. That means it turns out the word Basuna has two meanings. As I told you, one meaning is that this bark of the plantain tree, and also it means the desire. That means it has the meaning of desire. So he took the meaning that when you have so much desire, and that as if that God is saying, as if God has sent the word to that God that when we will actually burn your desires. So that actually he took that meaning, that means the hearting. He had sanskaras, that means you know that they are always inside, covered with this worldliness, whatever it may be. But on that particular day when he heard that, actually that it came up. He said, well, I am wasting my time in this worldly pursuits. Now my time has come. He was aged, so naturally it is time for him to spend the rest of the life in spirituality. So when he heard actually, that desire immediately came out in his mind. And it is said that he renounced, that means he gave up, that means he gave his zamindari to what is called junior members of his family, and he left just like what is called mendicant, and went to Vrindavan. And rest of the life he pursued spiritual life. In Vrindavan there is a place called Lala Babu's Kunj. That means that place he built up a temple where he spent the rest of his life in doing spiritual practices. The point is that in this way, if there is some spiritual inclination in his mind, that will be what is called lighted by going to a holy person. That is the point that he is saying. So in this way, we see that, as I told you, it is a part of the teachings of Lord Krishna to Uddhava, that holy company, and not only holy company, he has said the importance of holy company, and not only importance, he said that I love best, that means of all the spiritual instructions that can be given to a person, he said that holy company is the simplest, and not only that, he himself likes people to have holy company, and in that way they develop spirituality. So that is the part of the last message that Lord Krishna had left for us.
On behalf of the On behalf of the Vedanta Society of Toronto, I would like to thank Swami Prapannanda for making Uddhava Gita easy for us to understand, and all of you for participating and engaging in the discussions we had today and over the weekend. Now for some announcements of our upcoming events. We will be starting our summer races starting today, and there will be no Sunday service or scripture classes during this period.